Dr. Elena Harris fixed her reading glasses as she went through old boxes in the dark attic of the Berkshire estate. As an archaeologist who studied everyday life in Victorian times, she had been asked to list everything in this Philadelphia mansion before it was torn down. The house had belonged to the Ashford family for more than 100 years, and the attic held many forgotten things from the past. Dust particles floated in the soft afternoon light, coming through a small 8-sided window. Elena gently picked up items from a cedar chest, embroidered tablecloths, leather journals, old jewelry boxes that had lost their shine. Then her fingers felt something flat and solid, a photograph in a darkened silver frame. She wiped the glass softly with her cloth and saw 2 young women sitting on a fancy garden bench. The picture looked very clear for its age, with sharp details even though it was so old. Both sisters wore high-necked white dresses, with big puffed sleeves, their dark hair done up in the Gibson girl style. They sat very straight in the proper Victorian way, hands folded in their laps, faces serious as people usually looked in photos back then. Harris called Thomas, the estate manager, from the attic stairs. "Found anything important?" "Maybe," Elena answered, looking harder at the photo. "This seems to be from the 1890s. Do you know anything about the family?" Thomas came up the old, creaky stairs and looked over her shoulder. The Ashford family owned textile mills. They got rich in the 1870s and 1880s. The house stayed in the family for generations, but the last person living here died in 2019 with no children, so now it's being sold and knocked down. Elena turned the frame over and carefully opened the back. A small yellowed card fell out. In old faded ink, someone had written, "Margaret and Katherine Ashford, July 1895. God protect them." The words felt strange to her. God protect them sounded like worry or danger, not the usual happy note for a photo like this. She took a picture of the writing with her phone, then looked at the image again. Something about how it was arranged felt wrong, but she couldn't say exactly what yet. The sisters sat in what looked like a neat garden with trimmed hedges behind them. Different things were placed around. A vase of flowers on a small table next to them, an open book, a pair of scissors on the bench arm, and a hand mirror lying near Catherine's feet on the ground. "I'd like to take this back to my lab to study it properly," Elena said. "There's something odd about it." That evening, while driving through Philadelphia traffic to her university office, Elena could not stop thinking about the photo. The sisters' eyes seemed to follow her in the car mirror, asking for help across more than 130 years. She did not know yet that those eyes really were trying to tell her something, a hidden, urgent message waiting for the right person to see it. Elena's office at the University of Pennsylvania was in a corner of the archaeology building. Books about Victorian life, symbols, and home history filled the shelves. She set the Ashford sisters' photo under her bright examination light, which showed tiny details that were hidden in the attic. She started the usual work, taking photos from different sides, measuring the frame. The picture was about 6 by 8 inches, printed on old albumin paper that had turned a soft brown color. The silver frame had marks showing it was made in Philadelphia in 1895, the same year as the photo. Elena took the picture out of the frame and put it on her scanner. The clear digital copy let her look at every small part closely on her computer. She opened her photo software and checked everything step by step, beginning with the sisters. Margaret, who looked older, sat on the left. Her face had fine features, high cheekbones, straight nose, full lips pressed tight. But her eyes had a scared, empty look Elena had seen in other old photos of unhappy people. Katherine, maybe 2 years younger, sat on the right. Her face was gentler, but she had the same tight, pleading expression. Both had their hands locked tightly together in their laps. Elena looked closer at the things in the background. Victorian photos were done with great care. Every item was picked on purpose. Nothing was there by chance. She wrote notes. Fancy garden bench with carved designs. Tall, neat hedge behind. Objects including a crystal vase with roses that looked wilted. A leather book that seemed like a Bible. Open scissors on the bench arm, cracked hand mirror on the ground near Catherine's feet. She stopped writing. She had studied Victorian symbols a lot during her studies. These things were not just decoration. In that time, flowers, mirrors, and other objects had special meanings. Flowers showed feelings. Mirrors meant truth or pride. Scissors could mean cutting something off or even death. She took a book from the shelf called Victorian Symbolism in Photography and Art and looked up the items. The next morning, Elena read more, surrounded by books and websites about Victorian symbols. The more she read, the more upset she felt. Every object in the photo had a dark meaning. She made a list. Wilted roses. Roses meant love and life, but wilted ones meant death coming soon, or deep sadness. Fresh roses would be normal for a happy photo. Buff bays of habillé, dare, open scissors. Closed scissors showed home skills and goodness. Open ones meant cutting apart, danger, or a threat to life. Cracked mirror. Mirrors stood for truth, but a broken one was a strong sign of bad luck, often linked to death. People really believed it brought years of trouble. Bible. Usually a sign of faith, but closed and put aside it could mean loss of hope or giving up belief. Elena felt cold. Each thing alone might mean nothing, but all together they told a story of danger, death, and fear. Why would the sisters choose these things for their photo? Taking such a picture cost a lot of money and time. Families planned them carefully. She looked again, this time at how the sisters sat. Margaret held her hands so tight. You could see the strain. Katherine sat stiff, shoulders pulled in like she was afraid. Elena called her friend Dr. James Chen, who knew a lot about Victorian society. Elena, what made you call on a Saturday? He asked happily. I need your help with something strange, she said. She told him about the photo and the objects. Did Victorian women ever use photos to send secret messages? James was quiet, then said, Yes, there are records of women using symbols in pictures to show they were in trouble, especially when they couldn't talk openly. For example, women in bad marriages sometimes placed things in photos as quiet calls for help. Tell me more, Elena said. In Victorian times, women could not speak about family problems or forced marriages without shaming themselves and their families, but they could use objects in photos that people who knew the symbols might notice as warnings. Elena knew she had to learn the real story of Margaret and Katherine Ashford. The photo showed a sad message through symbols, but their true lives would show if it was real. On Monday, she went to the Philadelphia City Archives. The archivist, Patricia Rodriguez, helped her find old records. Soon Elena had files on the Ashfords. A 1890 census showed Robert Ashford, 47, textile mill owner, his wife Mary, 45, and daughters Margaret, 16, and Katherine, 14. Later papers showed trouble. In 1893, the family business lost money from strikes and competition. In 1894, Robert took big loans. Then came shocking news. August 1895, engagement notices. Margaret, now 21, to Harold Whitmore, 52, a coal mine owner. Katherine, 19, to Edmund Price, 48, his partner. The men were more than twice their age. Elena took photos of the notices, hands shaking. No marriage records for them, Patricia said after checking. But here are death records. Margaret and Katherine both died November 18, 1895. Cause: accidental drowning in the Schuylkill River. Elena left with copies, her thoughts spinning. 2 young women set to marry much older men died 4 months after a photo full of danger signs. The official story said accident, but it felt wrong. Back in her office, she made a timeline. July 1895, photo with death symbols. August, engagement news. November, both dead in the river. She searched old newspapers and found a short article from November 20th, 1895. It said the sisters went for a walk, fell from the riverbank in the dark, and drowned. The family was heartbroken. No more details, no follow-up stories. For such a big loss in a rich family, the news died very fast. Elena called James again. In 1895, could a rich family hide the truth about their daughters' deaths? Easily, he said. Police listened to wealthy people. Money and friends could keep things quiet. She told him everything, James said. I think this was a double suicide made to look like an accident. Women forced into bad marriages sometimes chose death instead. The photo came 2 months before the engagement news. What if they already knew their father's plan? Elena asked. What if they made the photo to leave proof? Elena went back to the archives for business papers. Robert's mill was failing after the 1893 money panic. He owed a lot. In May 1895, he borrowed $50,000, a huge amount, from Harold Whitmore. The deal was strict. Pay back soon or lose everything. Then in August, after the engagements, the loan was changed to easier terms if the marriages happened. It was clear now. Robert, to save his business, had traded his daughters to these men. The marriages were part of the payment. Elena felt ill. The sisters must have known or guessed. They took the photo in July, when they saw what was coming, using symbols to send a message they hoped someone would see. She looked at the writing on the photo back. God protect them. The handwriting was soft and feminine, not Robert's. Probably their mother, Mary. An 1897 obituary said Mary died after long, profound melancholy, a Victorian way to say deep depression. Had she known and felt helpless? That evening Elena studied the photo on her big screen. She made a drawing with each symbol explained. Wilted roses. Our lives are ending soon. Open scissors. We are in great danger right now. Cracked mirror. Our future is destroyed. Death is close. Closed Bible. We have lost hope or faith. Holding hands tightly. We face this together. Looking straight at camera. Please see us. Help us. Tears came to Elena's eyes. The sisters made a silent cry using the only way they had. But no one understood it then. James called later. I looked up Whitmore and Price. Whitmore's 2 earlier wives died strangely. One fell downstairs, one from poison that only hit her. No charges. Price had a lawsuit for assaulting a young woman, settled quietly with money. The sisters knew the danger. That's why the photo showed more than forced marriage. It showed they were being sent to cruel men. What will you do? James asked. I will make sure their message is heard at last, Elena said. Elena looked for more proof. She called the Pennsylvania Historical Society. A librarian found a box of Ashford family letters, donated in 1952. Elena went there the next day. Inside were letters from Mary Ashford to her sister. One from June 1895 told of Robert's terrible plan to marry the girls to Whitmore and Price. Margaret had found old newspaper stories about Whitmore's dead wives and begged her mother to stop it, but Mary had no power. Another letter from July, after the photo. The girls chose every object carefully. The cracked mirror, the dying roses. They arranged it like a message. Robert didn't see. They looked like they were saying goodbye. A November letter said the girls were very upset, not eating, crying. They wrote secret letters and asked to walk by the river, alone. The last letter, November 19th. The girls were gone. Police called it an accident, but Mary found their suicide notes. They chose death over the lives Robert sold them into. He hid the notes to avoid shame. Elena cried as she read. The mother knew but could not save them. The photo was their private record, hoping one day someone would understand. The librarian brought a sealed envelope, opened only after 2020. Inside were the sisters' own letters from November 17, 1895. Margaret wrote, We choose to end our lives rather than marry these men. Whitmore's wives died strangely. We think he killed them. Price is crew. Father cares more about money than us. We made the photo with symbols to leave proof. We have no other way out. We go into the river together. Katherine wrote, I don't want to die. I'm only 19. I want love, children, a long life, but it's impossible. We tried every idea. This is our only choice. We will hold hands like in the photo. If anyone sees it and understands the symbols, know we tried to speak when we had no voice. 3 months later, Elena gave a talk at the university. A big screen showed the photo with symbols marked. She told the whole story. The photo as a hidden message, the father's debts, the dangerous men, the mother's letters, the suicide notes. The room stayed quiet. Elena said the real sadness was that no one in 1895 saw the signs. If someone had understood the wilted roses, open scissors, broken mirror, or asked why 2 sisters drowned together, things might have changed. She showed the sisters' letters. Shame should be on the rules that gave women no rights, not on the women who suffered. After the talk, a journalist wanted to write about it. A filmmaker talked about a movie, but the most touching moment came from an old woman who stayed behind. "I'm Patricia Whitmore," she said softly. "Harold Whitmore was my great-great-grandfather. I grew up hearing dark family stories. Thank you for telling the truth. My family must face what he did." Elena held her hands. "We can't change the past, but we can understand and respect it." That night, Elena looked at the photo again. She saw the fear in their eyes, the tight grip of their hands. She gave it to the Philadelphia Museum of Art. It would be shown with the full story, explaining Victorian symbols and how women had no power then. The exhibit was called Voices in the Frame. When women couldn't speak, they showed. In her final paper, Elena wrote, "Old photos are more than pictures. They are messages waiting to be heard, voices reaching across time." Margaret and Katherine Ashford died in 1895, but their message, in wilted roses, open scissors, and a broken mirror, is finally understood. They could not be saved, but they can be remembered. Their story reminds us to look closely at silent signs left by people who had no other way to speak. As Elena switched off her office lights and stepped into the Philadelphia night, she thought of all the other photos, still in attics and boxes, waiting for someone to notice what they really mean. How many more voices are still unheard? The Ashford sisters waited 130 years. Their message reached someone at last. Justice came too late for them, but their story now speaks for all who suffered quietly and tried to leave signs for the future.